think I'm spooky?
Be afraid. Be very afraid. What have you done to his eyes?
Good evening and welcome to Soft and Spooky. For today's video, we are going to be looking at the highly anticipated Robert Eggers film, Nosferatu. Nosferatu!
Where are you?
I will be dividing this video up into a spoiler-free section as well as a spoiler-filled section at the end, so if you were looking to get some of my thoughts on the film without it getting spoiled for you, you can just check out the beginning half, and then if you want to see the full thing, watch to the end. So without further ado, let's sink our teeth in. The premise of this film is centered around a young woman that was just recently married. Her name is Ellen, and she is the object of obsession for this terrifying vampire named Nosferatu. It's basically Dracula.
This is Dracula.
Okay. Dracula?
It's just Dracula.
Nosferatu's?
He's Dracula.
Right, okay.
I do think it is kind of funny when you think about how the original film was born because they didn't want to get sued for copyright, but it's essentially Bram Stoker's Dracula with just a few details changed and making the vampire a lot more just weird and off-putting. He also is known as Count Orlok, and so I'm just going to put this here because I know as I'm filming this, I am going to definitely use the names interchangeably and it might get a little confusing. So he is a vampire. Nosferatu is Count Orlok. Okay, cool. I can hear somebody in the hallway and it's making me self-conscious. Okay. I think that this iteration of Nosferatu finds a really great way of emulating the bleak, depressing, gothic vibe that the first one and the remake have, but also making it very unique. There are particular scenes in this film that are illuminated solely by candlelight and no artificial lighting, and I feel like that level of authenticity and attention to detail is something that we can always come to expect from the director of this film, Robert Eggers. And right off the bat, I have to commend the cinematography by Jaron Blaschke. It's just phenomenal. It's kind of nice to see that Blaschke is actually a recurring cinematographer for Eggers films, and he has worked on The Witch, The Northman, and The Lighthouse. So, I don't know. I think that's pretty cool. I think the sequences that are the most captivating visually in this film have to involve the shadows, and it's kind of nice too because it is referencing the prior works of Nosferatu that were heavily utilizing the shadows and creating horror from that. It was one of the first teaser images that we got for the film, and I think with good reason. I mean, that looks so cool. One particular instance that I just loved was when you see the shadow of Orlok's hand gliding over the top of the town, and you hear these wails of agony and terror, and I just think that it was a really impactful piece of imagery that sold how much he is just destroying this town. Aside from the shadows, I also think that one of my favorite pieces of cinematography in this film has to be when Nicholas Hoult's character that plays Thomas is making his way to Count Orlok's castle, and there is a scene with the carriage. You see something in the distance approaching, but you can't quite make it out, and it feels fuzzy and it slowly starts to materialize a little bit more distinctly, and it gave me such a strong feeling of disorientation or kind of feeling like I'm dreaming, and I think that's what they were going for, and they achieved it perfectly. This also is a tremendous improvement from the carriage scene in the original because Count Orlok is the one driving the carriage, and it's like he's trying to pretend like he isn't obviously Count Orlok, just like with his collar up, and it cracks me up so much.
What are you doing?
Nothing. Just hanging around.
This one really maintains that eerie feeling and that kind of state of delirium when you're super weary from traveling, and I liked it. I think that it was a really strong choice to have the carriage have no driver, and it just made it feel a lot weirder. Along with the cinematographer, Robert Eggers also has a few of his favorite actors returning on the cast. We get to see Ralph Ineson, who was fantastic in The Witch, and then we also have Willem Dafoe, who was completely unhinged in The Lighthouse. The two of them serve as these kind of stand-in Van Helsing, where they're the heroes trying to defeat the vampire, and I think that that is definitely a very important role, but I don't know, I feel like after seeing these beautiful monologues that the two of them did in their respective previous films with Eggers, I guess I was kind of expecting a little bit more depth to their character, and it kind of left me wanting more and wanting to see them flex a little bit more in this one. One thing that I did get to see, and it was very much a surprise for me, was seeing Nicholas Hoult portraying Thomas, the lead character aside from Ellen, and I was very pleasantly surprised. Reflecting on some of like the previous works that I've seen from Nicholas Hoult, I always felt like he was fine. I guess I didn't really understand why he kept getting these lead roles when he gave a very solid performance in a lot of things, but I didn't feel like I was wowed by him. But I can confidently take that back after seeing this film. I can talk about the specific scene because it isn't a spoiler. So Thomas Hutter is going to Count Orlok's castle to do a real estate deal. Orlok proceeds to be like this bossy little weirdo and forces him to start eating. And he's cutting this piece of bread and he slices his finger. And after seeing that blood, Orlok begins to descend upon him. And all we see is Nicholas Holt's face here. And he absolutely nailed it. I mean, he gave the true, like, poop your pants sheer terror in his face. Like, he is about to die. And I thought that was incredible. I mean, it was very, very impactful for me. I thought he did a great job. I think sometimes you just need to see an actor in a very particular role and they rise to the occasion, and it truly challenges them as an actor and makes them expand on their talent. And I really saw that in this role, and I was impressed, and I totally changed my opinion about Nicholas Hoult because yeah, he did a really good job here.
Ladies and gentlemen, her.
I think there are quite a few contrasting opinions about her, specifically due to her being the daughter of Johnny Depp, an established actor already. And I think that sometimes it is kind of hard to, it feels like it isn't necessarily fair, where some people are kind of born into the fame and they have a little bit easier avenues to get into the film industry, and other people have to build it from the ground up. Instead, let's cast all of that information aside and really analyze her performance here. When I was gathering some additional information for this video, I did stumble across quite a few interviews with the cast, and I was very surprised hearing Lily Rose Depp, because in the film, I feel like she has this higher pitched voice. It's almost, it sounds weird. It's almost like very light and flighty. Like it's a very sort of soft voice. And seeing her in interviews, I was very surprised that her voice actually sounds quite a bit different, because it's a lot deeper. Well, not deep, but it is a deeper voice compared to the film, as well as she has a very modern cadence to the way that she speaks. And so I think that she put in some good work to make her voice a lot more suited to that time period.
It is like a dream.
It was vomiting.
Like this young woman who is like pursued or haunted by this monster.
Additionally, I have to give her props because she got weird with this role. Something that really stood out to me is that she wasn't afraid to look unattractive. And I know a lot of people have been posting memes and like clips of her kind of like convulsing and like the kind of interesting faces that she's made throughout this film. But I think that that is really important, because there have been these performances I've seen in other movies where there's the lead actress, and it's like, you gotta look scared, but make it sexy. And you gotta look angry, but make it cute. And it just, I think it was very refreshing to see that she wasn't scared to look unattractive in the weird weird movements and weird faces she was making. And I think that it really did show the commitment to the role and the passion that she felt for this character. Not everybody's gonna like that performance, but I really appreciate that she just did it. I keep slouching. For the spoiler-free portion of this video, I won't be diving too much into Bill Skarsgård's portrayal of Nosferatu, just because I noticed that for the marketing department, they paid special attention to not really including him in the marketing materials because they wanted it to be more of a mystery, and I want to honor that and not give away anything. What I can say is that the makeup department definitely made him unrecognizable in a very unexpected way. I also think that Bill Skarsgård gave an incredibly commanding performance, and I do think he achieved vocally as well as just performance-wise giving that villain vibe to it. But I do just wish script-wise that the villain had a little bit more depth to him, or they kind of fleshed out his character a little bit more. Overall, I think that this film does succeed in creating or emulating the time period that it was going for, and obviously the cinematography shines brightly as it always does. Additionally, looking at the dialogue from Ellen talking about her visions of darkness and how it has her, or that she sees death in her visions and welcomes it, I think that it serves as a very good layer of subtext as well as a metaphor for depression.
Standing before me was death. But I'd never been so happy.
Depression can feel like you're in a trance and that you don't have full command over your own body. And I think that this really aligns a lot with Nosferatu kind of being that darkness that takes over. I thought it was kind of clever, and I'm not sure if that's in the original film. I just cannot remember. But the ship, there's a ship that crashes that has Nosferatu's body on it, but also it is filled with rats, and all of the townspeople mistakenly assume that there is a plague that's spreading through their town, but in reality, it's Nosferatu. He is the plague of darkness. Fun fact, according to interviews, there were 5,000 rats used for this film.
That's a lot of
Rats. For Nosferatu, I just personally don't feel like I would really want to watch it again, just because it left me feeling kind of weird and heavy, and if I'm being honest, I don't think that the script really provided anything that significantly different from the original source material, and I thought that we were going to get a little bit more development of either the villain or of the characters, and I just felt like it kind of lacked in that regard. And that just about does it for my spoiler-free thoughts on Nosferatu. If you don't want anything spoiled, feel free to click out of the video now, but before you leave, definitely consider giving this video a like as well as subscribing to the channel. With that being said, let's get into our spoiler-filled review in 3, 2, 1, spoilers. I'm not even going to ease you into this because we have to talk about a very specific scene. I'm sitting here, I'm watching this bleak, horrific tale about this woman that is being consumed by this darkness, and her husband has just returned from his harrowing journey back from Orlok's castle. And then she starts getting a little weird. Oh, shoot. Ellen's going crazy.
You could never please me as he could.
What did she just say? What the fuck? She starts rolling her eyes back and drooling and dribbling all over herself, and she says some crazy ass things. And then she kind of snaps out of it and apologizes to Thomas and crawls over to him. And then she says that Thomas could never please her as Nosferatu does. What? He saw her drooling on herself and obviously going through something, And he thought, yeah, I'm a freak that. And with that same act, that is also how she eventually destroys the vampire. So when Thomas was traveling to Orlok's castle to make that real estate deal, he initially stops in this village with all of these very superstitious people. And he has this vision or dream, although he does wake up with muddy feet, so it almost indicates that it was real. But he has a dream that all of the townspeople find Orlok's grave and then they stake it with an iron stake, like through the heart. But apparently it didn't work to kill the vampire.
Take that, vile fiend!
Dad, that's his crotch.
Later on, Willem Dafoe's character says that Nosferatu can only be killed if he doesn't return back to his grave or back to the earth by sunrise. So in the final ending of the film, Ellen invites him in and they start making whoopee. So she basically lures him to keep feeding even past sunrise, and that's what ultimately leads to him dying. And I don't necessarily hate this idea because, like, in my mind it does make sense. You know, he's got to return before sunrise, and tricking him into staying out late, like, that makes sense. But why'd they have to have sex? Like, it wasn't really like the climactic electric ending that I was hoping for, I guess. And I just don't see why she had to, like, bone his literally bony ass just to kill him. It just, I don't know. Also, this movie is just filled with weird sexual stuff because Friedrich, Thomas and Ellen's friend, basically, he loses his whole family. He loses his wife as well as his 2 young daughters to Nosferatu. And grief-stricken, he goes into the mausoleum to visit his dead wife. And he kisses her on the mouth pretty passionately. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then in the next scene that we see him is like, I barely could make it out, but his like wife's knees were bent and like her legs were lifted up. And I think he got down and dirty with his dead wife. I don't need to see that in my movie-going experience. Like, I'm still recovering from the trauma of seeing this one film called Contracted. So gross. Stop doing weird stuff with dead bodies, please, in these movies. Like, ugh. To just blatantly change the subject, I do need to talk about Nosferatu's makeup. I don't know, I'm kind of torn on Nosferatu's face because apparently back in the day, like, Bram Stoker based Dracula off of Vlad the Impaler. And in this film, Nosferatu has a mustache, and it's a very thick mustache, and I found it distracting.
Look at my mustache. Do you think it tickles women when I kiss them?
I don't know.
Wrong. The answer is only slightly. Only slightly.
One thing I will say is that the special effects makeup just made Bill Skarsgård completely unrecognizable. Like, I couldn't even get any semblance of his face there. And so it really did transform him into Nosferatu. Oh my gosh, his throaty, growling voice, it didn't sound like Bill Skarsgård at all. I mean, it sounded really cool, and it didn't make me, like, cringe at all. It wasn't, because sometimes, like, when they do the evil entity or the evil creature, they kind of layer the voices, and it doesn't do it for me. But this, I think that he made an incredible choice by making that throaty growling sound, and it blew me away. That being said, I do wish that there was just a little bit more that was motivating Nosferatu. Yes, he is a monster, and they can have the sole goal, that rhymes, the sole goal of just creating chaos and destruction. But I guess I just was like expecting a little bit more out of the script. I was expecting Robert Eggers to expand on the lore. Like, I knew that it was going to be another adaptation of Nosferatu, but I thought that he was going to maybe add some further context or additional information, and I didn't really feel like I got that from this film. I mean, shoot, even SpongeBob SquarePants kind of expanded on the lore of Nosferatu because we see that he's got a debilitating case of OCD.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
I know that I love the idea of a romantic vampire, one that crosses oceans of time to find you, and I do really enjoy that, but I also was very much open to a primal and aggressive predator version of a vampire. I think at least with this version, I do see a lot more fear tied to the character, and the stakes are not just inconsequential, like people do die. I think that there was a lot of buildup leading to this film's release. I mean, I know I was personally stoked when I heard about it, and I was very interested to see how this classic vampire story would be told. And ultimately, I just felt like it was okay. This isn't a new story, so what lesson are you trying to teach, or what are you bringing that's new to the table? For instance, like when you think about Jurassic Park, obviously velociraptors don't need a villain arc or like a backstory. They're predators and they hunt. But you develop the human characters into relatable people that you care about seeing if they make it. And you can even make secondary villains. I think that that's also a huge thing when it's a predator that's just kind of hunting. You know, in Jurassic Park, there's a theme that's built, and you even get a very kind of introspective quote from the film.
Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Wow, like what a concept. Thinking about the hubris of man and how we keep seeking and striving for riches and new developments when sometimes we don't realize that maybe we've gone too far. But with this film, I'm not sure what the message is. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel leaving the theater, and I don't know who I was really supposed to care for because I didn't feel that strongly attached to really anybody. And I think that's one of my main gripes with the film. Ultimately, I think that the production value on this film is stunning. There is no doubting that. Like it's a beautiful movie. But for the story that they tell and for the substance that lies within it, I'm not sure I want to see this again. And that just about sums up my feelings on the Robert Eggers film Nosferatu. What did you think of this one? Did you have a strong reason like why you didn't like it or why you did like it? I'd love to know in the comments below. While you're there, please consider giving this video a thumbs up so I know you liked it. I am a small YouTuber, so pretty much every like and every subscription, it helps me gain some traction and allows me to keep talking about this stuff that I love. So please consider sticking around. And with that, I will see you all in the next video. Don't forget to stay soft and spooky. Bye!